Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be joined by the money guy, Brian Preston, host of one of the top business podcasts, The Money Guy Show. Over 41 million views and 9 million downloads last year alone. Best-selling author of Millionaire Mission, which you can see if you're watching the video version, a 9-step system to level up your finances and build wealth. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Seth, thanks so much for having me on. I always love coming on, talking to other content creators and figuring out how we can help make the world a better place.
Well, we're certainly going to do that today. Brian is also 25 years of financial planning experience, been featured on Forbes, USA Today, Go Banking Rates, Yahoo Finance, many morning shows, co-founder of an RIA managing over $1 billion in assets. How'd you get started in the business in the first place?
Yeah, I was, I'm one of those nerdy guys that got a degree in public accounting. Always had a fascination with money, though, and how it worked, because I grew up in a household where my parents were great savers. Never, they didn't waste any money out there with spending or excesses, but they just never knew how to make money work. So they never invested the money. So I was always trying to figure out, how do you take that component of discipline, but actually let your money start working? And so that's where the fascination came from. And I was fortunate that back in the mid-90s, when I was working in public accounting, accountants started getting into doing, consulting, financial planning. And I was on that early adoption with the firm I was at and helped them scale and start a firm, and then started my own firm in 2002 after working at several other financial planning firms where I got to do athletes, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and really got to see the ins and outs of this. So it's been a passion and a journey for the last 30 years.
Awesome. Well, I know the longer version of that story is probably in the book. What inspired you to start your own firm?
Yeah, I lost my father in 2000. He got leukemia, and I was working I was making great money, but I was also leaving the house, 6 a.m, coming home 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And I started getting really sentimental to, I wasn't going to get a lot of time with my father, but I got a lot of quality time with him because he was at all my sporting events, all the school plays and everything else. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to live the life that my father did for me unless I change something. So I was like, the only way I can do that is if I start controlling this component of time. So, and the only way I could do that was start my own company. So I started a company inspired by my father passing. Really, it was more emotional than analytical at that point, because I'm a very analytical guy, but it was driven by the desire to do something different. And I'm not so sure without that spark or that moment of clarity from the trauma, if I would have done it, but it's worked out beautifully. And I give a lot of credit to my father.
Well, I'm not psychologically qualified to answer that question, but it seems to have worked out. And there's certainly been a silver lining. There's not just benefited you, but millions of others. You're at the pinnacle in terms of RIAs, in terms of assets under management, breaking the $1 billion barrier. How'd you grow so fast?
I mean, I think, Seth, what makes us different is I call it the abundance cycle, is that I am pretty transparent that I want people to come in and get as much free information. I want to overwhelm them with value, with the thought that hopefully when you get so successful that you realize this complication of success actually does require somebody to help you navigate that well, that you'll think about who planted all those seeds of wisdom for the years. And so far it's worked beautifully. I mean, you would, because what's crazy is I get to go speak at all these conferences and other things about how to market digitally, and I am the worst salesperson in history. I think my secret sauce is I love to educate, I love to talk to people, and somehow in this new digital world that we live in, education can be tremendously valuable, even from a marketing standpoint.
Absolutely. What inspired you to start the Money Guy Show?
So I got my first iPod in 2005, and I was always a talk radio and an audiobook person, and I was like, man, this thing is something else. I mean, the fact that, and I think now we take it for granted how we have all this digital technology and the ability to control mobily our entire lives. Back in the day, it wasn't that way. I mean, you basically had to either had cassette tapes or you had to tune in at a certain time. And I recognized very quickly that this was going to change the world from an education standpoint too. So I kind of leaned into that pretty early in 2006. And I'm happy to say that my digital classroom has exceeded my expectations.
How'd you, I mean, 41 million views, 9 million downloads in 1 year. How'd you grow the show? How'd you grow the following?
I mean, I'd like to tell you that it was brilliant planning. I think it really was the purity of the message. And then let's face it, also in 2006, there was nobody doing this. So I think iTunes was so thankful that they had probably me and 6 other people who were sending them content consistently, that they made me a featured show for like 10 years. And that was the first part, is I had the real estate before everybody else. But then also I think I had the passion, as well as the once again, overwhelming value. I mean, you don't have to want to like me, but if you come to our content, you're going to see that we just give it away. And then I think after a while, I kind of get under your skin a little bit.
Hopefully in a good way.
Definitely in a good way.
What inspired you to write the book?
I've always had it as a bucket list, and I got to tell you, I've had 3 or 4 false starts. I know you have done quite a few books, but for me, it took me probably the 4th one to realize, hey, I had structure, I have a system, I have something really to say here with a powerful message. And the pandemic is when I started this, and I had a lot of time on my hands to kind of really, push things through. And then I like to tell you that this actually was a very slow process, because this is probably the 4th, 5th version of this book, because it kept getting edited and got better every time. And I'm pretty pleased with what's happened, because once again, coming back to, I think if anybody, even if they don't know any of my content, if they read this book, especially if they were right out of college or their curiosity towards money was just recently piqued, this is going to answer all your questions.
The book is Millionaire Mission, 9-step system to level up your finances and build wealth. You have talked about in the past on your podcast how there's hundreds of thousands of books about money. There's obviously many financial gurus who are self-proclaimed experts about their particular system. What's different about yours, and why has it been so well received, and why does it work so well?
Well, here's the thing I always ask myself. I ask this of everyone, and I ask it of even my system. Chicken or egg? What came first? The persons who's sharing the benchmarking and sharing how they made their success, did they make their money from selling the system, or did they make their money because the system is so good that it actually created results? I'm very clear that actually my system comes from my own success, but also what I've been sharing with clients for the last 20 plus years. And I wanted to make sure I put that in the intro chapter, because I do feel like I look around and I see a lot of people in my field who their wealth is directly from how well they've sold their system, not necessarily that the system's yielding a lot of results for them. And so I think anybody, and what's fun when I go on shows like this is I've had a lot of people who've read the book and they say, man, I really can tell that you wrote this book with the heart for everyone truly can be successful. It doesn't have to be, because there's a lot of books out there that they make these assumptions that you have to have huge incomes, you have to have all these things line up for it to actually work. My book takes you really from, you could have entry level job, you could be anywhere. As long as you start early, often, and really think about and make your money work for you, you're going to be successful.
That is awesome. What are some of the, you mentioned a lot of this is obviously a business audience. What are some of the most, we want everyone to go get the book, so don't spill all the secret sauce, but what are some of the most important money moves for those high income business owners and professionals?
Oh, I put some really nerdy stuff in here. I mean, if you've ever wanted to know how you do charitable giving, where you're not only getting to give money to your favorite charity, but you're saving on taxes, but also how you can increase, your ability to have access to liquid cash if you need to ever come into more money. So I've got nerdy stuff like that in there. I've got, of course, the mega backdoor Roth IRAs, but I think the bigger things, besides even outside the nerdy stuff, is I give you the mindset items, because I think once you get into that hollowed air of of success beyond deca millionaire and beyond, a lot of people don't even know what's the mindsets I need to have once you reach that, because it's just, most people are striving to get to a millionaire. They don't know what to go beyond that, and I try to really give you all the mindset stuff so that you feel like you have a life well lived, not just from the net worth statement or balance sheet of your life, but also from, you look back and you don't have regrets that you left anything on the table, from both a memory standpoint as well as what you're building and maximizing.
That makes a lot of sense. You talk about something called forced financial scarcity, which sounds like a scary term. What does that mean?
Well, it's supposed to be scary because, I mean, think about it. And this is where, if you bring the behavior stuff down to its simple elements, you want to make the good habits as easy as possible, but you want to make the bad habits that much harder. When I talk about forced scarcity, just means whenever you have more money come your way, maybe you get a pay raise, or you have an investment that's starting to create some cash flow for you, instead of letting that expand your lifestyle, you're doing that lifestyle creep like everybody else does. Why don't you take 60% of that money and actually let it go towards additional investments? And what that does is, I call it forced scarcity, is that you're squeezing so that not every dollar goes into lifestyle. But if you do this behavior consistently, all of a sudden you're going to realize, wow, just because I forced myself in small incremental elements, I created huge change for my life. And that's also, it keeps you from all the psychological stuff. Like I said, back to the bad habits, being as hard as possible, but the good habits being easy. It automated the wealth building process for you. So it's those little type of things that are going to just change your life.
You talk about your 9-step process to becoming a millionaire. And I know there have been critics out there who are saying it's not that simple, but you've proven it over and over and over again. Can you give us a couple of those steps? Obviously, we'll get the rest when we tell everybody to go get the book.
Yeah, easy. And by the way, even if you don't buy the book, this is what makes me, I think, unique. Go to moneyguy.com/resources. You can download the 9 steps completely free. But it's really, think about this. I'll just go through them really quickly. Step number 1 is highest deductible covered. That's your number 1. You want to keep your life out of the ditch before you even get started. Number 2, you got to get that free employer money. So that's the match. If your employer is offering you 50 cents or a dollar for dollar match, that's a 50% or 100% guaranteed rate of return. You got to get in there and get that. Step 3, high interest debt. How are you ever going to get ahead if you're paying credit card companies 30%? Avoid it. Stay away. I tell you how to navigate that. Step 4, cash is so important, not only to keep your life out of the ditch, but also so you can maximize wealth building opportunities. Cash gets 2 steps. Step 1, highest deductible covered, but also step 4 with the emergency reserves, 3 to 6 months. Step 5, tax-free opportunities. This is your HSA. This is your Roth IRAs, because the government restricts how much tax-free growth they're going to get. Get in there and get that and maximize it. Step 6, this is where you're going to maximize those retirement contributions. Load up the 401k, the 403b, and all those things. Step 7, hyperaccumulation. Has a weird, quirky name, but what it really wants you to do is think about the mindset once you're saving and investing greater than 25%, and also how you're going to use that money in retirement. Really excited about how that chapter turned out, because I think it answers a lot of questions people will have once they start having success. And then step 8, I call it abundance goals, but it's prepaid future expenses, where you're talking about how do we save for the kids' college well, how do we get into residential real estate, how do we get into commercial real estate, all those things you want to do once you reach abundance. And then step 9, let's finally pay off that low interest debt. get out of all the debt and all the encumbrances, let you own your life and your time completely.
That is beautiful. How do you help people overcome a scarcity mindset where no matter how much money they make, they always feel like they're paycheck to paycheck, it's not enough, that they picked up at the bottom of the stairs from their parents, teacher, preacher, whoever? How do you get people to overcome that and really embrace an abundance mentality?
Yeah, this happens. Savers do not like to become spenders. So I have to work on this all the time with my financial planning clients. I find showing the numbers is very important, but then also I show them the vision of what is happiness, what actually brings you joy when you spend money on. Are you doing enough of that? And what's funny is when you kind of differentiate that, yes, money's helpful. It's a very powerful tool. But if you think about, are you maximizing your life? Because, our time is the most valuable resource and we just don't get more of it. And I think when you highlight this happiness factor and spending money, actually letting it do what brings you joy and incremental decisions for memory building with family and loved ones, I think it's that type of stuff that helps people get their perspective and actually loosen up a little bit so they don't just take it all with them, or try to at least.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, we know your time is incredibly valuable. Before we talk about where to go to get the book, I know you mentioned a link once. There is a lot of different financial advice trending on social media, whether it's Facebook or TikTok or Instagram. And I know you love to get up on your soapbox and talk about what makes real sense. So if you could rant for us for just a couple minutes.
Well, I mean, there's big things where I think people screw up in the financial journey is some of those initial decisions. Don't get caught up in the consumer society that's being created around us. Don't go buy the expensive car right out of the gate. Don't feel like you have to impress people with all the fancy clothes and everything else. I want you get your money working for you as soon as possible. I don't care if it's $50 a month. Just do something, because I'll tell you, Seth, when you look at what the average American has in their retirement account by the time that they're 60 years old and greater, you quickly realize that most Americans allocate more to their coffee than they do to actually saving for the future. So the biggest rant I have is just do something. Like I said, it doesn't matter if it's $50. It doesn't matter if it's $100 a month. Just do something, set it, forget it, always be buying, and you're going to be amazed at how that small decision created tremendous results to your great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
I love the idea of that.
Wasn't really a rant, though. I feel kind of bad about Seth.
That's all right. We appreciate you toning it down. It's quite all right. We know your time's incredibly valuable. We greatly appreciate you spending some with us. For our folks watching or listening, where is the best place for them to go to get the book, Millionaire Mission, to listen to your podcast and learn more about all things Money Guy?
Yeah, well, look, you always go to moneyguy.com. That's going to be kind of your home base. But let me tell you a great financial mutant way to get the best deal on Millionaire Mission. I want you to go to moneyguy.com/millionaire mission. And we have a list of every one of the main vendors, your Amazons, your Barnes & Noble, but also a lot of the smaller sellers, because I'm always amazed at the promotions that every one of these different providers are offering. So why not? We've already created the links for you. Might as well go ahead and just do a little price shopping and get that best deal possible.
Awesome. Well, we greatly appreciate your time. This has been Seth Greene here with Brian Preston from The Money Guy Show and Millionaire Mission. Brian, thanks again for joining us.
Oh, Seth, this was a blast. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. We'll talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.